Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be making a house number sign. Let's get into it. So this house number is going to be made for one of my dad's customers. They saw one of the ones I did a while ago, which I didn't share with the channel, and really liked it, so they wanted one themselves. Unfortunately the number is 112, and the ones are fine, but the 2 is a bit of a nightmare really, because you've got the curve at the top, which I'm probably going to have to freehand with a router, but we'll get into that later once I've cut it down to size and measured it and happy with it all. But anyway, let's get into me making it. For this, I am going to be using this piece of oak, which I think I got from work, which are offcuts. This was a while ago, my previous work, and yeah, they were going to be chucked in the skip, and I thought, well, I'll have them, and ever since I've just kept them and haven't really had a use for them until now. So I'm going to be cutting this down and routering in a house number. So this oak has actually already been finished. I'm not sure in what, but I will be sanding or scraping it back, because I'm going to end up giving it another sand anyway afterwards, and then putting another coat of something on it, probably maybe Danish oil, teak oil, something like that. But first off, I need to cut it to size. I'm going to cut it to 185. I'm just going to mark it with the tape measure and square a line along it. And with that marked out, I can then take it over to the chop saw and cut it to length. The next step is to start marking it out with the numbers. And I'm just going to simply do it by eye and just hope it looks right. I'm not going to be printing anything out and sticking it on, and I've done that before, but with things like this I'm just going to make sure it looks right by eye and route it out with a little palm router. So I've marked the centre point so far in the middle of the wood. I'm going to use a combination square to mark lines in from the top and bottom so they're the same. So I think I'll try about 6mm to start with, and mark a line along the bottom. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a line here, the centre line, and a line at the bottom, and then I'm going to fit the numbers in between here. So this is where I'm at the moment. I'd be lying if I said I may have searched 2 on Google, because it's actually really difficult to draw a 2 which you want it to look good. Like if you're just roughly doing it, it doesn't matter, does it? But I've also marked in about 10ish mil from the sides for the screw holes. That will be into there because I kind of forgot about that beforehand. And then you can roughly see the marks of a 1. So that's what I'm going to do now, is start drawing out the 1. So I've marked it out, I've got the ones done now. So now I'm going to just go over it a bit darker in some pencil so I can see a bit clearer. Otherwise I don't want to router lines that I don't want to route. So that's what I'm going to do first. So to route this out, I'm going to be using my Makita palm router with one of these fences. So to cut the grooves in this, I'll be using this grooving bit, and just put this in my router, and I'll be using a fence and a couple of other ways to get some straight cuts. Obviously with the 2 and the curves, that's going to be mostly done by freehand, but the stuff that I can do with a straight edge, I will be doing it with that. But first off, got to get this in the router. So when tightening the router bit up, I actually ended up using 2 spanners in the end, which come with the router, because it wasn't tight enough for what I wanted it to be. And I've also heard things that if you use the locking bit that comes with it, sometimes that could snap off. So if you use these 2, that's not going to happen. So I did that, and when routering this out, I'm going to be using the fence along the bottoms of the 1s and the bottom of the 2. And I've also put this sacrificial bit of, well no, it's not sacrificial, this piece of oak on here, which is nice and straight and flat, which just gives more reference area, because if you look under there, you can see there's a gap here, which once you're pushing off could tip and you haven't got a lot supported. I'm also going to be using a speed square, and this allows me to get the 45-degree angle for the one, the slanted bit, and the straights for the straight bit of the one. So I will be cramping this down and running the router off of this, lining the bit up in the middle, and that should give me a nice straight cut. So I don't know how clear this is going to be, but to explain it in my bestest ability, I've cramped a straight edge of the square along here. It's quite secure in place, which would line up with the centre of the one here. So once you get the point and you put the router on here, the centre bit, the point of the router lines up both at the back and the front, so it should theoretically give you a nice straight cut. So what I'm going to do is reference the base on here obviously and butt it up against the edge, and that will run nicely along there. So as you can see, the router bit has left a nice straight line. However, yes, it's a bit burnt. It's probably not the sharpest of bits. And also, I think I'm going to go a bit deeper than that, because in the end, I'm going to paint some black in between each of these, which will make it stand out a lot more, and then sand it back afterwards, and that will clear, if I've missed any of the paint or anything, that will just clear it all off. So I'm going to lower the router a bit in my router, do another pass, and then see what that looks like. So I've made the groove a bit deeper now, and then I'm going to run the fence along here afterwards. Just need to do this one first, do the same here. Same way, same with the speed square, and then I'm going to use an edge guide, which come with the router, to do the bottom of this. And I'm going to make sure I keep above the line, because otherwise I'm going to start going below it, and it's going to look weird. Whereas with this, I could just do it on the point. So I'm going to do that now. So I've attached the fence to my router. As you can see, I've got the bit of oak there, which just gives me more support, and I'm going to run this off the edge of my piece of oak, and that will give me a nice straight line on the bottom. I've made some little pencil marks as well, which will tell me when to stop so I don't go past my line. So there we go, there are the bottoms of the numbers done. As you see, it leaves, again, is a bit burnt, but once you've got paint on there, never going to see it. I'll give it a little bit of a sand as well beforehand. And yeah, nice, clean, straight cut along the bottom. And now I'm going to work on doing the angles for this, and for which I am going to use, again, my speed square. So again, I've cramped my speed square down at the 45-degree angle this time, and we'll just run the router along the edge like that. And you could do this with any angle. If you had, let's say, I don't know, 50-degree angle, obviously this is a 45, this is standard. You could set up a sliding bevel and then get it in place and cramp a piece of wood down. A sliding bevel probably isn't thick enough to run the router along, so I'd recommend getting any old scrap piece of wood which is straight, and you can run it off that instead. But I made sure these were 45, so I didn't have to worry about anything like that. So I'll give this a try. Hopefully this will be set up. I'm just plunging it in slowly, and then if I think it's not going to be what I want, I can then budge the fence over a little bit and go again. That way I don't go over the line. So I've routed them both out. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit with a chisel because I didn't quite go to the end of this one. Now I'm just going to use a gouge just to round it over a bit at the top. So this is the stage we're at now. I've done both the ones, and now I've just got to do the curves on the two. This is just going to be done freehand, so I'm hoping it's going to go okay. Fingers crossed it does. I may end up having to move this in a little bit more just to get that so it doesn't reach the top, because I don't want to go over the top of this. I'd rather stay under it and follow it round. So I'm going to leave it there for today. It's getting very cold and I am freezing in here. So I'll probably come back tomorrow morning or some other time to finish it off. This is how far I got. So it's a little bit, I made a bit of a dip there when I freehanded it, but I reckon I can blend that in with some sandpaper. Everything else I think turned out quite nicely actually. I'm just going to sand it a little bit and paint the insides black, and then I can sand back the face and hopefully it will look really good. But yeah, that's enough for today, and I will come back tomorrow morning. So it's the next day and I have cleaned up a little bit. This was just off camera. I only took a couple of minutes just to chisel this bit round a bit, and now I'm going to sand the faces and everything that's got a bit of finish on it. May use some scrapers just to clean it off like that. But yeah, I'm going to just sand the faces, probably with some 80 grit, just some rough paper to start with, and maybe go down to about 120, and then I'll also sand in between all of the grooves we made yesterday with the router. Right, so I've sanded all of this now. It's only with 80 grit, and I've sanded the edges and in between all of this. It has got some burn marks on it, as you can see through here. However, it's going to be painted, so you're never going to see that. So all I'm going to do now is use this paint. It's no special paint, it's just some black paint. Perfect for interior and exterior use, it says. So that's what I'm going to be using. And put it in there. It's no fancy stuff, it's just what we have. So yeah, first off, I'm going to paint all in between here. Doesn't matter if you get it on the edge, if you're going to be making a sign as well and you want to make one like this, then you don't need to worry about getting it too precise in there, because you're going to sand it back afterwards again and it's going to clear all that lovely black off of it. So but yeah, get it as good as you can, because then that saves you having to do all that. So there we go, I painted the insides. This is what it currently looks like. Bit messy, but it will sand back afterwards. Hopefully it doesn't need 2 coats. Shouldn't do, But if it does, then I'll just have to apply another coat. It just all depends what it looks like when you sand it back. But fingers crossed it'll be all good. I'll leave that to dry overnight, and then I can get on to finishing it really, because there isn't much more. Just a case of sanding it back, giving it a final finish with some higher grit sandpaper, and putting some lacquer or some oil on it. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do yet. And then attaching it to the wall. Right, so I'm back in the workshop now, and I'm going to sand the face of this and just the edges which the paint is spilled over. Hopefully it looks alright. If not, then I may have to give it another coat, but fingers crossed we don't. So first off, sand it back. Okay, so I've sanded it back. This is what it currently looks like. However, I'm going to give it another coat because it doesn't look like it's fully dark enough as what I want it to be. Put another bit of this paint on and then sand it back again, and then I will show you what that looks like, because I'm not going to repeat the process again and show you that. That's boring, you don't want to see me sand. And then I'll come back to you when I've done that. So I've left it to dry again overnight with the second coat. I was going to leave it a couple of hours, but I just thought I may as well leave it the full time. And this time I brought it inside my house. Because silly me didn't realise that actually it wouldn't dry properly if I left it in the cold, which it was freezing the other day, so that's why it didn't dry properly. It was all quite tacky, whereas now it's nice and smooth and it's dried properly. So again, I'm going to sand this back just with 80 grit just to clear it off and see what it looks like and go from there. So this is what it looks like sanded back. Currently this is at 180. I've just done it with the orbital with the 80 grit to remove all the paint, and then I just sanded it back with a hand block with 120 and then 180, which has given it a nice smooth finish. I wouldn't go any higher than 180 personally, only to denib at 240 because of the grain with oak. It's so open, you don't want all the dust going inside it and then it creates a bad finish in the end. So stop at 180 with oak. So now I'm just going to sand the edges just with a hand block, and also I'm going to add a slight bevel with a block plane just round it, just to make it not look like a block of wood, if you know what I mean. So after sanding it to 180 grit and taking the arris off or adding a slight chamfer, this is what we're left with. I don't know if you can see the chamfer very easily, but it's turned out really well, and hopefully the customer will like it. So for this I'm going to be using the Melamine Gloss Lacquer. This is a chestnut product and it's easier to spray it on with all the grooves in there. You could use a paintbrush and that, but it's just a lot easier with this. So I'll probably give this a couple of free coats, possibly. And denib in between. Doesn't take long to dry, I don't think, so I'll be denibbing back with like 240 grit, and then I can drill the holes and screw it to the wall. In fact, I might drill the holes first. That might be a good thing to do. Yeah, so I'm going to drill the holes first and then I'm going to spray the lacquer on. Also going to countersink these holes just with a bit. So I'm just propped the piece up on some little blocks and I'm going to spray over with some lacquer and yeah, do it all round and then denib it and then give it another coat. So the first coat of lacquer has dried. I'm just going to use a little bit of 240 just to rub over it and denib all the fibres that have come up. Then I'm just going to add another coat of lacquer on it. I'm probably going to do one more after this and just denib it in the same process. Anyway guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure that you like and subscribe. I think currently we're on like 210, which is amazing, and my workshop tour's past 5,000 views. So I really appreciate all your support, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.